I threatened my sister to move out because she kept telling me that I am incel without knowing the truth. My 23 male, younger sister, 15 female, is currently on her phase where she thinks she's the most unique and special person in the world. Because of this, she's also developed some sort of superiority complex against other people's hobbies, and especially if she doesn't like them. The problem started when she started using the word incel to insult me and my hobbies out of nowhere. She seemed to notice that this word hurts and disturbs me, so she keeps calling me an incel just to elicit a reaction from me. I'm playing a video game? I'm an incel. I'm watching anime? I'm an incel. I'm building a Gundam? I'm an incel. I've talked to her about it and asked if she knows the meaning. She knows it perfectly well, and she thinks that I fit the description well. I asked her why she thinks so, and she tells me that she just knows that I'm an incel. Because of that, I've just been ignoring her. This seems to piss her off because she began to annoy me on another level, such as pulling my headphones off just to call me an incel, and even just using incel as a generic nickname for me. I talked to my parents last night and told them that if they don't do anything about her behavior towards me, then I will move out of the house. My dad and I pay 50-50 for everything because his salary alone can't sustain all of the bills. My mom is a volunteer worker in an animal shelter and refuses to seek a job because we come from a culture where men are expected to be the sole providers. My mom justifies my sister's behavior as just being a typical teenager and is begging me to be more understanding because I'm the older and more mature one. My dad, on the other hand, knew that I was serious and agreed that they need to punish my sister. I don't like ultimatums, but I feel like I don't have other choices anymore. I don't want to yell at my sister or even fight with her because I know that it will simply make her attitude worse towards me. Update 1. Shortly after I gave my ultimatum, my dad punished my sister by taking away everything that I paid for her, like her laptop, her phone, her PC, and her Switch. He told her that this is your life without your brother, and basically stored them away somewhere that even I don't know. Since then, my sister became even more aggressive towards me. She calls me daddy's boy, snitch, coward, and many other names whenever we pass by each other both in public and at home. She even started to throw things at me unprovoked even when I'm not looking. They were soft things like towels, socks, stuffed toys, or handkerchiefs, but still. My mom keeps making excuses for her and even freaking consoled her when she was crying over her things being taken away. That was when I fully realized and accepted that she was my mom's favorite. When I finally told my dad that I wanted to move out, he was understanding. He kept apologizing to me for not doing anything earlier because he was always at work. He's now making up to me by helping me look for an affordable renting place. My mom, on the other hand, didn't take it very well. She's extremely cold to me now. She told me that I'm abandoning her. According to my dad, she cries every night because she can't accept the fact that I'm moving out. For now, I'm temporarily staying with a kind friend. My dad encouraged me to detach myself from my mom and my sister as soon as possible when I told him that she started to throw stuff at me. I don't think I would be having any sort of relationship with my mom or my sister any time in the future. I do feel really bad for my dad having to deal with my mom and my sister alone. Thank you for the kind comments in my original post. This is probably the last time that I will talk about this issue. Story 2. My sister abandoned his son, so I raised him as my own. Years later, her daughter wanted me to treat her like how I treat my son. When I, 43 female, was 18, and when my sister, 47, was 22 female at the time, I had my nephew, let's call him Luke, with her then boyfriend, now husband. My sister and her husband didn't have any interest in Luke when he was born, so I took the role of taking care of him. I got my grandmother, she's an angel, to watch him while I was in my last year of high school in exchange for me cleaning and cooking for her on the weekends. My parents weren't much help either. They would give me about $100 a month for Luke, and if you have a kid, then you know it's not much. Me and my grandmother were the only ones to take care of him. A year after I graduated from high school, I was kicked out with my nephew because my parents, sister, and her husband didn't want to deal with us anymore. My sister said she wished she never gave birth to him. I immediately went to my grandmother and we went to a family law attorney, and I got custody of him, and my sister and her husband signed their rights to me. I lived with my grandmother, and when I went to community college and my part-time job, she watched my son, Luke. It was a lot of work, especially when my grandmother passed away when my son was 6. My grandmother left 90% of her things to me in her will, which caused my parents and sister to reach out to me under false intentions to meet my son and I to reconnect. That didn't last long, and I told them they could either act right or never see us again. My dad decided to actually reconnect with my son and I, and now we're close. While my mom and I don't really talk much, but she treats Luke nice. When Luke was 8, both me and my sister became pregnant, and that's when my sister decided she wanted my son back, and started to tell him that me and my husband wouldn't love him anymore once my actual son came along. My husband met my son when he was 5, and we were already together for a year before he met my son. My husband treats Luke like his, and we got married when my son was 7 and adopted him when he was 9 with my son's permission. We found out that my sister was saying this when one day he broke down crying, asking us not to leave him after we told him that would never happen. He explained what my sister and her husband were saying. Luke knows that he's not my biological son, but he is my son. After that, I cut contact with my sister and her husband again and did family therapy and individual therapy for my son. When I had my son, 1 pregnancy, 2 children, I made it clear that our love for him, Luke, didn't change. When my sister reached out about 2 years later, I decided to go low contact with her with the okay with my son and husband. My husband and I live comfortably, while my sister and her husband struggle sometimes financially. My kids did extracurricular activities, got the presents they wanted, and went on one big family trip in the summer, while my sister and her husband couldn't afford much. So when my niece was around 9, my sister started making comments about how I needed to pay for this or that for my niece, but I told her it wasn't my job. I gave my niece the gifts she wanted, took her out from time to time, but nowhere near how I would treat my own kids. Now my son, second, is turning 17, and my husband and I were talking about getting him a cheap starter car. We did the same for Luke when he was 17. My niece is also turning 17, and apparently my sister told her she was going to get a car too. The thing is, my sister can't afford to buy her a car, so she asked me to, but I told her I wasn't going to buy her a car, that I didn't promise her one, and that it's not my job to get her one. My sister then got mad and didn't talk to me for a while. When my son's 17th birthday came around, we surprised him with a car. My niece then called me a couple of days later, screaming and asking me why I hate her and why I can't treat her the same as her brother. I calmly told her things were different. Her brother is my son while she is my niece. I'm her aunt and nothing more. That as an aunt, my job was birthday presents, Christmas presents, and showing up when it mattered. That was it. That her brother will always be more to me than she'll ever be. Then my niece started yelling at me again, telling me that I'm being unfair, and hung up. My sister then called me to berate me about how I needed to do more. I told her if she wouldn't have promised a car to her or my money to my niece, none of this would have happened. It's been a couple of days, and I'm getting calls from some family and some of my sister's friends calling me a B and some other things. I do feel bad because my kids did grow up with more, and I guess I could have helped more. So, am I the a-hole for what I said to my niece? Update 1. First, I want to set something straight. I never let my sister hurt my kids like some of y'all think. The low contact was for my niece, and that's all it was. When birthdays were coming up, we would talk about birthdays or holidays. The conversation would consist of when I would pick up my niece, let's call her Emily, how long I would keep her, and when I would drop her off back home. My sister never kept my kids, never been to my house, and never talked to them without me or my husband present. Now, another reason for the civil relationship with my sister is because Emily and my second son, let's call him Justin, went to the same school, so any type of school event that was going on, my sister was there. My kids and niece had a good relationship before the car situation. Justin and Emily had a close relationship, and Emily and Luke had a friendly relationship. I always made sure my kids were happy, where my sister was in their life, which is basically non-existent, except for some school events and some big family get-together. Update 2. Days after Emily's call, I decided to call her to meet up with her. We decided to meet at a park that's a few minutes away from my home. When we met, Emily seemed normal but a little bit tired. I told her I didn't mean to hurt her in any way, but she needs to understand it's not my job because I'm not her parent. She said she understood, but she was jealous that her brother, Luke, and Justin got everything that they wanted. I told her that first, Luke isn't her brother but a cousin. Second of all, they don't get everything they want, they work for it. They get good grades, do chores, stay out of trouble for the most part. I then asked her the real reason for why she was acting this way, that she never had a problem before this. She then started crying, saying that it wasn't fair that Luke and Justin get everything they want while she barely gets anything. That Luke lucked out in life by being adopted by my husband and I, that she deserves to have what my sons have, that she is my family so I have to take care of her too. I told her that she's part of my family but not my child, that I do love her but she's not my responsibility. I then asked her why she feels so strongly about it. She said that even though her parents do take good care of her, she feels like she's just an obligation to them. When she sees how Luke and Justin were raised, she gets jealous because in her eyes, we don't look at the boys as an obligation, that we're a family that's always together and always works through problems and helps each other. That even though I stayed in her life and took her out with my family, she always felt jealous that she had to be that one to leave. That she felt second place, and since I took in Luke, I should take her in with no problem. I told her that while I understand her feelings, I'm not going to treat her as my kid. I didn't raise her, but I do love her. That it's her parents' job to get her a car or to help her get one. Then she got more upset, saying that I clearly don't care about her, and she left. I texted her saying that I do care for her, but I'm not her mom, and it's not my job. After I got home, my husband and I talked, and we decided to call my sister. I told her that my family and I are going full no contact. My sister then asked about how I'm going to get in contact with Emily. I told her Emily is almost an adult. She can contact me if she wants. She then asked me if I was going to get Emily a car. I said no. I told her that it's her job, that she's her mother and needs to act like it. Emily needs her to be a mom, and hung up the phone, blocked and deleted her number. The next day, I got a call from my mom. She believes that I should give Emily some money for a car if I won't give her one. I told I wasn't going to do that and hung up because all it's going to do is cause a fight. I then called Dad and explained everything, and he thinks I'm right. Then my dad called asking if he could come over on Wednesday. When he showed up, he was visibly upset. Mom gave a big chunk of money out of my parents' retirement fund to my sister. This has caused my parents to have a huge fight, which led to my dad packing a suitcase and staying in a motel for a bit. Now I'm no contact with my sister and mom. I'll be going low contact with my niece for now. Thank you for the advice that everyone has given me. Update 2. About a week after I posted, I decided to talk to Emily. We decided to meet at my home. I asked everyone not to be home because I wanted her and I to talk privately. When she showed up, she didn't really want to look at me, and I asked her if I could give her a hug. She nodded her head, and the minute I hugged her, she cried. She said she was sorry for how she acted, and I told her she didn't need to apologize. I asked her how her parents treat her again to understand more about what's going on. She told me that her dad treats her well and she tries to spend time with her, but he's been busy because he works 2 jobs. While my sister is home more, she usually just keeps to herself and doesn't really like to be bugged. I then asked her if she feels like she's been neglected. She said no, just sometimes they don't have family time that much because her parents argue a lot, especially about money. That sometimes her mom does make her feel like an obligation, but she knows that they do love her. I then asked her about the money my mom took from the retirement fund. She said that she and my sister were going car shopping soon. I then brought up her calling Luke her brother and if she feels that way about him. She said she sees him like a cousin and she thought if she played the brother card, I would feel inclined to help her. She then explained that even though they are biologically siblings, they are cousins and will always be cousins. I then asked her if she knew how I ended up adopting Luke. She said that she knew her and her dad had explained what they did. Apparently, my sister sugarcoated it while her dad told her the blunt truth, and it was the complete truth that he told her. Luke only sees her as cousins also. To Luke only has one sibling, and that's Justin. I then spoke to her about seeing a therapist that we would pay for. My husband agreed. She said she would think about it. I then asked her if she would like to do a fun day out with me on Saturdays. She got excited and said she would really like that. So that weekend, we went on our first day out. We went to this restaurant that she's been wanting to try. We had a good time. I then took her to a bookstore because she loves to read, and I bought her a couple of books that she's been wanting. When Emily and I were supposed to have our second weekend out, I had to cancel because Justin ended up in the hospital. While at football practice, he started wheezing a little bit, and he took his inhaler but didn't wait the appropriate time. He then got tackled, which knocked the wind out of him and caused him to have a bad asthma attack. This happened on Friday, and Justin stayed at the hospital till Sunday. Emily and I were supposed to go out Saturday, and that morning I called her and told I had to cancel. Before I could tell her why, she started yelling at me, saying I never cared about her, and hung up the phone. I tried calling her back, but it went straight to voicemail. Then I sent her a text saying that I didn't mean to hurt her, but Justin was in the hospital and that we can have our day out next weekend. I never heard back from her. I gave up on reaching out to her after a couple of days. 2 days ago, my family and I were out for a family night when my neighbors called saying that they called the cops because someone was vandalizing one of our cars. When we got home, the cops were there and it was Justin's car. The car had scratches, little dents, and paint. There are 2 broken windows. My husband and I checked our security footage, and you could clearly see Emily and someone else vandalizing the car. My husband gave the video copy to the police, and Emily and her friend got arrested the next morning. My sister and mom came to my house screaming that I was ruining my niece's life, and if I loved her, I would drop the charges. My husband is admitted that we don't drop the charges, and Justin and Luke agree with my husband. A lot of people have asked Luke's version on everything, so I decided to talk to him. He said he's over everything, and it's best to cut contact with everyone, even Emily, because she's just like her mom. So we are cutting contact with everyone except for my dad. Story 3. My sister flirted with my girlfriend and made her uncomfortable. Now I'm having trouble with my parents and friends. I've had this account for a bit, but I prefer lurking instead of posting. My, 19 male, sister Haley, 20 female, not real name, is a very open and flirty person. She's never put a label on her sexuality, but she has said she's attracted to everyone. Ever since we were in high school, she'd often flirt with girls I was interested in. She would also flirt with my friends when they'd come over to hang out. Sometimes Haley would even come into my room without knocking just to talk to them. It was very uncomfortable, and some of my friends even stopped coming over to my house because of it. This made me really angry, and I told our parents, 45 male and 42 female, but they'd always say I'm being homophobic and to leave her alone. So she'd always get away with it. A few months after she graduated, she moved out of the house, and I haven't had to deal with her flirting with my friends anymore. 7 months ago, I met my now girlfriend, Layla, 18 female, and we really hit it off. We've been together a little over 4 months. One thing to note about Layla is that she's really shy, so she never voices any concerns until after the fact. Well, I really wanted her to meet my parents, so we set up a quick dinner at a nice restaurant on Tuesday night. Without even telling me, my parents invited Haley, who was almost 30 minutes late. For the better part of the dinner, she would constantly flirt with my girlfriend. She'd give Layla comments about her clothing, body, facial features, and even offer her number multiple times. My parents would just laugh along with her antics, saying it's just how she normally is, but I could clearly see Layla was uncomfortable, so I paid my side of the bill and took her home. When we got to her house, I asked if I could spend the night, and she said yes. And that's where I've been for the past few days. My parents and Haley have been blowing up my phone, calling me all sorts of names, which has me thinking I was in the wrong. I haven't answered any of my sister's messages, but I told my mom where I am. When I asked Layla about it, she said the compliments were nice at first, but she got uncomfortable. So, am I the a-hole for making a big deal out of my sister flirting with my girlfriend? Update. Friday night, I messaged my mom and dad to let them know I wouldn't be conversing with them unless Layla was given an apology. Up to this point, that still hasn't been received, and I don't think it ever will. I also let them know I'd be stopping by on Saturday to pick up my things from the house. Well, Saturday morning, I go over to the house and bring my girlfriend's dad, who we'll call Carl, to help me. Sitting on the porch is my sister, who tells me immediately she wants to talk. Anyway, we go inside and sit down, which is when she says she has to tell me something without me freaking out. Basically, in a much more dimmed-down version, my sister tells me she has had feelings for me since high school, which is when I started going to the gym and slimmed out a lot more. She said the main reason she flirted with all my friends is because she wanted to divert her attraction somewhere else. According to her, this is also the reason she moved out so quickly, because she couldn't stand being around me and knowing she couldn't have me. I left. I didn't get any of my stuff, and honestly, I don't know if I'll go back to get it. I blocked my sister on everything as soon as I got back to my girlfriend's house, and my mom keeps messaging me telling me to apologize for walking out again. I don't know how to feel. I'm absolutely disgusted. I feel like throwing up all the time, and I'm not sure how I'm supposed to get up and go to work tomorrow like everything's normal. I haven't told my girlfriend or her dad yet, and I don't know if I'm going to. I have no idea if my mom or dad knows, but even thinking about it makes my head hurt. This is so much worse than I thought it was. What the F? I know a lot of people might start commenting about how this is fake, and I don't really care. I wish it was.